Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Nicholas Kelly, and his approach to life is filled with compassion, artistry, knowledge, and a deep-rooted desire to do good in the world. Diagnosed at 3 months old with cystic fibrosis by his mother, he never let his condition prevent him from pursuing a normal life. He worked hard, overcame obstacles to thrive in all that he did, including earning a bachelor's and master's degree from Bowling Green State University, after which he became a dietitian. In addition to his academic success, he is a poet, educator, author, and decorated speaker. He draws from his personal experiences to inspire others to live to their full potential, use their strengths, remain positive, and advocate for themselves and others. He is an advocate for the CF community, gaining recognition for his efforts in the media, national and local organizations, and patient-centric speeches. It is my pleasure to introduce you. How are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely excited to have you here. We Before we dive into all the things you have going on, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you origin from and how was your upbringing?
So I am Cleveland born and raised, CLE stand up. My upbringing, I had a very traditional upbringing. I had my mother, father. I have two siblings, a sister, twin sister, and an older sister.
Okay.
And we really, during my life, I was strive to be normal. I was taught to be normal,
Yeah.
whatever that means. I wasn't allowed to use my disease as a crutch. I wasn't allowed it to make me different. I was held to the same expectations as my siblings, and I got to do the same things they did. So my childhood was exactly what you want a childhood to be. I got to be a child.
Yeah, I love that. You said something about, I think there's a lot of labels, right? And people tend to get a label for conditions or for how you look, whatever that might be, right? And there's the idea of being quote unquote normal, right? It reminds me of Les Brown, and he said something about an incident that took place with him where, his teacher said, do not let somebody else's opinion about you become your reality, right? And when we look at it from that perspective, kind of looking back for you, um, the fact that you were able to live a normal childhood, what was that thing you were striving for to become growing up?
I want so growing up, as a job, it's funny. Growing up, I always wanted to be a mad scientist. That's the
Mm.
job I wanted. And then I got older and found out there's no job that's mad scientist. You just a scientist. I was heavily disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. I was
Yeah,
heavily disappointed. But really, what I wanted to be is I wanted to be exceptional, and that's what's always driven me is to be exceptional. And as I've grown and I've gotten older, that's transitioned to legacy, and that's
yeah,
what drives me the most is legacy. Figuring out what that is, showcasing what my legacy is going to be.
yeah. Got you. A lot of people, as we're growing up, we're going into that the normal 9 to 5. It's kind of inducted into ourselves at an early age. Go to school, get a good education, graduate, get a master's, bachelor's, and go through that path, right? And then land a good job and hope to retire with a shiny object, right? Was that more or less the idea with you, or how was that perceived, from your perspective, growing up and going to, getting your bachelor's and getting your master's?
So for me, that was never on the table.
Okay.
I never looked at the traditional route. I started my first company when I was 19. I started an entertainment company, and it was called Hungry and Humble Entertainment. And I was in college, and I knew early on I wanted the entrepreneur route. I was in college, getting my bachelor's. I got my bachelor's in nutrition, dietetics. So they didn't necessarily coincide what I
Right.
wanted to do as an entrepreneur and what I wanted to do professionally. But my mom always was the traditionalist, like where a lot of parents are. She was the get a degree, get a good job,
Yeah.
work hard. That was always where her thing was. And that was never me. I've actually only worked a full time job for 1 month in my entire life.
Wow. Yeah. Gotcha.
So my thinking had always been finding ways to thrive inside of entrepreneurship, inside of taking the path less the path of more resistance, but the path less traveled.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love that. So, talk to me about then the because I think that there's a lesson within that, and the reason why I brought it up, I think there's a lesson in terms of traditional, non-traditional school, being an entrepreneur, having 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with any of that, right? But from your perspective, obviously you have a bachelor's and you have a master's. Was that more? What was the reason of you getting that when you had in your mind you had like, hey, I'm gonna go the entrepreneurial route? Was there a particular reason why you uh, decided to go to school and get those degrees?
I love nutrition. I love everything about nutrition. Nutrition was like one of the greatest puzzles I ever seen. And so that's how I got my undergrad in it. And in the process of looking for an internship, because you need a dietetic internship to become a dietitian,
Okay,
I was applying for school. I was applying for internships, and Bowling Green actually had an internship, but it was coupled with a master's program.
got it.
So I took that internship, and I inherently had to do the master's program with it. So maybe a master's wasn't initially on my journey
Yeah,
for plans, but I did get there, and I'm happy I got one. I can say I got a master's.
yeah,
I
for
learned a
sure.
lot from the experience, so I am happy I got one,
Yeah,
even if it wasn't what was part of my plan.
yeah. No, I love that. I have here one of my comments here from you says, "Live with passion. Passion is the single most important quality a person can have." Can you expand on that?
Passion is what should drive people. Passion is the thing that we all need because when you find passion, it allows you to utilize purpose and it increases productivity. So when I say utilize purpose, I look at purpose as the external display of passion. So you find your passion, whatever that might be. And the thing is, finding passion, you could find it in everything. You can find passion in your job. You can find passion in a specific task at work. You can find passion for an overall concept, overall being, even writing a book, the passion. And then your passion is for writing. Your passion
Mhm.
is for healing. Your passion is for educating. And then the book is just the external display of that passion. And
Yeah,
that's how I look at it. And then that increase your productivity because productivity is merely you pushing beyond your own limits. So it doesn't have to be like, people think of like the numbers, I'm more productive at work. That doesn't just have to be, that could be more productive in your life because you're pushing past your own limits.
got you, got you. Talk to me about you talked about a book, and you're an author. What is your book about? What's the title of the book?
So I have currently 4 books.
Okay, awesome.
My first 3 books are children's books.
Okay,
They're named Miss Messy Susie Magoo and the Cuff Cough crew, the Respiratory Zoo, and our enzyme crew. So what that is about is a little girl with cystic fibrosis who goes through life learning different things about her disease and
mm,
different therapies. And so the reason for those books was me and my co-author is a nurse of mine, and we always wanted to make CF not scary for children. We
got
wanted
it.
to make it fun. We wanted to make it something they didn't have to fear. And so that's what we did. And we created a book that allowed that to be something they didn't fear.
Got it. For those that
And
before we go on, for those that don't know, what is the condition, cystic fibrosis? Can you explain a little bit about that?
yes, so cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease that primarily affects the lungs, the pancreas, and the GI system. However, what they don't tell you is it affects everything else. CF creates this thick, sticky mucus inside the body, which plugs up your body
Mm.
and it makes it hard to gain weight. So it gives all these different things and avenues inside the body. And what happens in the lungs is so this thick, sticky mucus builds up in your lungs, which creates bacteria, which creates infections, which creates scarring over time. And
Mm.
that's why you lose lung function and breathing decrease over time because it is a progressive disease.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I definitely, I love the fact that you were able to persevere and, again, don't not necessarily label yourself knowing that it was there, maybe being aware of the fact that you had it, and at the same time, like you said, being quote unquote a normal kid to have a normal life, right? And that I think that's a huge lesson in itself.
Absolutely. So one of the things I tell people is, and one of the things I learned from that nurse I just mentioned is she would always tell me, Nick, you have CF. CF does not have you.
Mm,
And so just keeping with that mindset that CF does not define me, but CF is one part of my story.
got
So
it.
it just merely defines one part of my story, but I am so many different parts.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, no, that's huge. It's kind of like the idea of, in other terms too, right? You control life, life doesn't control you, and when you have control of your life, then even with the external factors and whatever things might be happening, you can definitely push forward. What's the name of your fourth book?
It's a cookbook, so
Oh,
it's
cool.
called No Need for Seconds.
So you're a cook. You know how to cook too. You're into that.
I, I I do know how to cook, but really my specialty is understanding flavor profiles and
Okay.
understanding how to put those together. That's my real skill set. Like I enjoy cooking, I'm good at cooking, but really just understanding how flavors come together
Yeah.
and utilizing that. So it's actually a high calorie cookbook with comfort food, and it was a long, long journey. It took me almost 7 years to do that cookbook,
Wow.
but I persevered and I refuse to take no for an answer in so many ways.
Yeah.
And completing that was one of my, like, when you check off things on
Yeah.
life goals kind of thing, that was it.
Right. Yeah. And you know what I think is the way you've been living life, right? You kind of refuse to take no as an answer, not just on the cookbook, but in really anything you've been doing, right? It's like I'm not gonna settle for less, and I'm gonna keep pushing through. Just going through even just your day-to-day life, right?
Absolutely. I don't understand no. It's not something I'm good with. It's never something I've been good with.
Yeah.
I know challenges, I know obstacles, and I breed success
Yeah.
because I look at success as not an object to be obtained, but a byproduct of the hard work you put in. That's
Yeah.
how I define success. That's how I see the success. And so I'm always striving to be more successful and building on that legacy.
I love that. And then you're an educator, so are you educating on CF, or are you educating on other aspects?
So I've done a lot of different educations. I was a dance teacher
Okay.
for many years. I was a professional dancer for 12 years. So I educated a lot of dancers. I've done education on cystic fibrosis before. So I just call myself an educator. I've done arts. So things that I love, I like to share that. So I've done education on nutrition. So the things that I love, I like to share my knowledge and expertise.
Yeah, got you. So tell me about, obviously you had a really uh outgoing lifestyle. You've got involved with books, you're educating, you're speaking. What is the one thing that your message, right? In terms of the one thing you want people to take away when they come in contact with you, or like, they see you, they pick up your books. Like, what is that one message? How do they, I know you're building this legacy, right? What is that one thing you want people to remember or walk away by coming in contact with any of your stuff?
The one thing I always want people to remember, if they take nothing away from Nicholas Kelly, it's Nick lived with passion. That's the one thing I always want people to take away from me is Nick lived with passion. So whatever, they may not remember anything about what I've done, they may not remember anything about those various things. But the one thing I always want people to remember is Nick lived with passion.
I love that. And so, talk to me about like your day-to-day routines, because I know, you know, um, every entrepreneur at least that I know, we have something, right? Like we do something every day. I think that there's a big difference what separates, the 95% and the 5%, or people that are working a 9 to 5 versus somebody that's actually has taken their leap of faith in becoming an entrepreneur. Do you have any daily disciplines that are helping you stay positive, that are helping you see the good in life, that are helping you be this person that you are right now?
For me, I don't have a daily routine, but I do have things that I look at and say, okay, Nick, what am I going to accomplish today?
Mm,
What thing do I need to accomplish today? And that might be some days it's small. I'm going to answer all these emails
okay,
because that needs to be done. Sometimes I'm going to reach out to someone. I'm going to call so many people today. I'm going to make sure this thing is in place. I'm going to just process and think about what my next project could be because that's one of the whereas I am right now is figuring out what my next project is going to be.
got you. And then, in terms of when we're looking at the times that you get the opportunity to speak and educate people, what are some of the topics you speak on and or educate people on if you get in front of a stage or just like here?
So my primary topics are bridging the gap between clinician and patient,
Mm,
living without limitations, and understanding how finding passion, utilizing purpose increases productivity.
got you. I love that. I want to kind of dive in a little bit on living without limitations because I think we all kind of find sometimes the excuses or we find all these things within our surroundings that are not allowing us to kind of move forward. Talk to me a little bit about living without limitations.
Living without limitations is the first thing people is understanding or need to understand is you take your current circumstance and you find the barrier into moving into another circumstance
Okay.
because that's the most important thing because a lot of times people they have issues but they never identify what the barriers to that next issue is going to be and saying so if you're a single mother and you're trying to get something for your child what is the barrier of entry so that barrier entry could be understanding the financial aspect so how do we resolve that so we look at a job or we get a savings plan
Mm.
or sometimes it just might be asking for help so because a lot of people don't want to ask for help because of that pride and so that they don't want to owe someone, but sometimes that's a necessary evil. So living without limitations is understanding what the barrier of entry is and doing everything you can do to solve that.
What about if sometimes again we have bad influences and or we don't have the resources to be able to step into that. So how do you handle that? Because again, we're gonna come up with excuses, right? At the end of the day, I think that's what they are, right? But some of them are real excuses, and we get challenged, right? So what if I have people talking, behind my on my ear telling me no, this is not the best path, or I don't have the resources, whether it's money, people or other stuff to help me tackle that, then what next?
That's where I think passion comes in.
Mm,
Because
okay.
when you find passion, you're allowed to find it doesn't have to be this grand gesture. Sometimes it could just be a little morsel of passion and you allow that to be your driving force because people can give you bad advice all day
Right.
and it's on you as the individual to start finding does that align with what I want to do, does that align with my passion, and if it doesn't align you can find out there that there's an issue in place, and then if you don't have resources say okay inside of these resources what part of my passion can help me overcome these lack of resources because sometimes yeah you don't have money you can't money won't magically appear I understand that but the
Hmm.
mentality you do and how you approach not having it can be different so a shift in mind state that's one of the hugest things about living without limitations is how you control and shift your mind state to be able to navigate it into the next phase.
I love that. I love that. There's two things you said, and I love that. The first thing is, you have to work on your mind shift, the mentality of it, right? Of that. The second one is, which I want to expand more on that is, if you have to find your passion. That's where passion comes in. What about if somebody says, I don't know what's my passion, I don't know what's my why, I don't know what's my purpose? Like, because people are like that, right? Sometimes they're going through so much stuff. They're like, I don't know what is that purpose, that why, that passion. How can you, or what would be one thing you can say to those people so they can start navigating and start finding what might be their passion?
So I give a couple things. Number one, try things.
Okay. Yep.
You have to be willing. That's the big thing. It's
Right.
not just trying things. Be willing to try things because sometimes people try something, but they're already determined how they feel about it. Food happens a lot of time with this. People determine I'm not gonna like this. So
Right.
you literally never had it. You
Yeah.
have zero exposure to this food. How do you already know you're not going to like it?
Yeah.
And so, but you have to be willing to explore that option. And then, yeah, you may not like it, but at least you now have a benchmark for what you don't like and what you do like in this particular space.
Mm.
That's one of the big things that for people, you have to be willing to try something.
Yeah.
Another thing is taking time of self inventory. What do you enjoy? As simple as that. Tell me the things that you enjoy. So if you enjoy binging a good show, maybe your passion might be understanding like I need to do this inside of this.
Hmm.
Like one of the things I tell people is if they're trying to exercise. So even though we see it less now, but doing exercise in between commercial breaks.
Hmm.
That way they have a way of still getting exercise and still doing the passion they love, watching show, binging a good show, but they also can fulfill another goal by exercising in between
I love that.
because these things is what happens is when you see results, when you see the success, it breeds more success. So if you're willing to put the work in and whatever that work might be based on the things that you enjoy, because the things you enjoy can lead to the things you love and the things you love into the passion that you of things you want to achieve.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. No, that's huge. And going back to the mindset and the mentality, there's an African proverb that I really like, and it says, "When there's no enemy within, there's no enemy outside that can do you no harm." Right? And
Wow,
I
that's a great proverb.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think part of that is really that, right? Your mind can make it or break it, except again, just like you talked about going to the gym, right? You want to get fit, you want to, do all this stuff. So you're taking all these ingredients, you're doing the reps, you're doing the push-ups, right? The same thing with the mind, right? We want to make sure that we're taking information, right? In terms of who are we listening to, what are we watching, what are we reading, right? To help the mind, again, like you said, get aligned with what might be something that I enjoy and start trying things so that I can find my passion and then ultimately get into that alignment of living the life that I want, right?
Absolutely. That getting into alignment, like finding out your why is something. Finding out your why and allowing your why to align with the other parts of your life.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So, Nick, if people want to connect with you, find out more about you, your books, your cookbook, and all that stuff, how can they connect with you, find out more about you?
So it's Nicholas Kelly RD at .com. So Nicholas Kelly KELLY R is in registered, D is in dietitian.com. My social handles are all Nicholas Kelly RD. So that's you can get a hold of me on socials. And my email is nicholaskelly.rd@gmail.com. If you guys didn't notice, there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
So I can be easily found. I love communicating with people. I love being able to come in contact. Like I said, my books are there. I love being able to speak to people. So I'm always accessible for that. So just being a part of people, being one with the people.
Yeah, I love that. You've given us a lot of great tips, a lot of great information. So I want to see if I can get a couple of more things out of you to help our viewers. For people that are going through a challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing or a few things you can say to them that they can start doing now to start overcoming that challenge?
That's a good question. And I think first and foremost, if you're going through a challenge, the first thing you got to do is identify what the barriers are. I mentioned that earlier, but when
Hmm.
you say challenges, what are your challenges? What's the actual challenge? Because sometimes we have all these things and we feel like all these things are piling on at once. But if we took time to undo the spaghetti string, we might see it's just this one thread. That's the real issue we have. Like,
Hmm.
I don't have the time to commit. Well, how many hours are in a day? So people love to say there's not enough hours in the day, or is it just you're not just utilizing the hours that you have?
Right.
And sometimes it takes sacrifice. Everybody, it's not for everyone to find, but the people who want it will get it. You know, it might be as simple as you get off work, and I know everyone's tired because they work, 8 to 10 hours. But 1 hour after you get off work has to be dedicated to you, has to be dedicated to overcoming this obstacle. And then you can go to bed. Yeah, you may want to be sleepy in for that extra hour, but it takes sacrifice. Nothing great was ever accomplished in your comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that, man. That's huge. That's a big one, right? And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we have to take in account and really look into is like I said, in life there's got to be sacrifices, and you got to be able to weigh in what is the sacrifice you're willing to take to have a better life, right? And really enjoy the rest of your life. I always tell people, if what would your yourself 5 years from now would want you to do today to become a great person, and will they be happy with you with what you've done in these last 5 years, right? And so I think once you're looking at that, you're able to determine what am I going to sacrifice to have a better life. Well, that's huge. And Nick, anything else you want to say before I let you go?
One of the things I just always want to emphasize is that finding passion, as I mentioned, is the single most important quality a person can have. But the reason for that is because it can be a driving force for everything you do in your life.
Mm,
Allow passion to be your guiding light, and it will guide you to the next steps. It will guide you to the things that you want, and it will guide you to success. Because remember, success is not an object to be attained or achieved. It's merely a byproduct of the hard work you put in.
I love that. Well, again, Nicholas, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your presence here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you guys go ahead and connect with Nicholas. He can be found anywhere with Nicholas Kelly, RD. I'll have all the information for you guys on the show notes. Second thing is, please make sure that you guys share this message because definitely somebody needs to hear it. And I'll see you guys at the next episode. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.